Mayor Cheat, old Mayor Cheat. Just because he donated to the app doesn't mean that the app, makes it. That Klobuchar also donated, so did Biden. So you had lots of campaigns that donated to the Shadow app. Is it possible? I mean, I don't think Bernie donated. Could they have? Is this a neoliberal? Are these motherfuckers in cahoots? They're all going to go to the goddamn convention, aren't they? Bernie Sanders has to win this in round one, and because the Democrats left a secret back door open for the superdelegates, these neoliberal pieces of shit, these anybody but Bernie motherfuckers, are going to go all the way to the July convention. And I think if all five of them, stick together, I think they could take away Bernie's nomination. He's got to win this, and he's got to win it resoundingly. He's got to not just get a plurality, he's got to get a majority. He's got to get a simple majority, not a super majority, not a super duper majority, just a plain old 50% plus one majority. That's all they got to get. That's all they got to get. Above 50%, right? So, how are they going to do this? Why am I saying any of this? Why do I assume any of this? Because when they asked him at the Las Vegas debate that would they accept the candidate who's got the plurality or a simple majority, and they all were pretending like, I'll let the convention. The Bloomberg said basically the will of the convention. You got to listen to the rules. And then Elizabeth Warren agreed with Bloomberg, and Amy and Pete agreed with Bloomberg, and Joe Biden agreed with Bloomberg that if Bernie Sanders wins 40% of the delegates, that's not enough. That is not enough. Now we got to get the establishment involved. So, fantastic. All these motherfuckers think they got 500 superdelegates that they probably, in their back pocket. That's how they're going to steal this election. Before with Hillary, they were saying basically she had, 600 delegates versus Bernie's 3 or 20 or whatever. They're neck and neck, 50-50, but they added the superdelegates, and so the lead just seemed like it was astronomical. But who are these fucking superdelegates? They're the establishment, so a lot of the, Democratic governors and the House of Representatives and the senators, I think those are all superdelegates, and there's 500 of them, so, we need to start figuring out who the goddamn delegates are. Who are we electing the delegates from each one of these states? So, who are going to be Colorado's delegates? And then, who are the goddamn, superdelegates of Colorado, or I guess superdelegates are just above everybody and above everything, huh? So, we got to figure out who all the delegates are for each of the states and for the superdelegates, so that way when it comes to the convention, we'll, guarantee that we got a majority. If there's a plurality, then we're going to have to get the majority of the superdelegates, and I don't know if they have a superdelegate strategy going at all. They have to have a plan B, so I think at the same time, Bernie's supporters need to try to charm and win over the superdelegates, on Bernie's behalf, because I feel like he's trying to win the people over. Well, the people can help, the establishment fall in love with Bernie too. Mayor Pete had a great moment. He's trying to seem like the moderate. He's the one that's in between Bernie and Bloomberg, and he says, you know what? We might have two of the most polarizing figures in this race. It could be Bernie versus Bloomberg. And what are we going to do? One wants to burn this party down, and the other one wants to buy this party out. And in fact, why don't we actually elect a Democrat to the Democrat nomination with a shot at both Bloomberg and Bernie? So it's a fantastic moment because one's a socialist, the other is a Republican. So Mayor Pete, I think made a good argument that he's in between Bernie and Bloomberg. Is that where the moderate is? That where the center is? Where is Eisenhower Republican? And Hitler, is Hitler he's on the spectrum somewhere, so anyways. Speaking of Hitler, Amy Klobuchar, she did not prosecute any of the police in Minneapolis in the 8 years that she was the county attorney of Hennepin County, which is the chief prosecutor of Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is that where the fucking July convention? Milwaukee? Where the fuck is Milwaukee? Is that Minneapolis? Milwaukee? Where the fuck is Milwaukee? Regardless, Amy Klobuchar, she's the chief prosecutor of Minneapolis, major city in America, and for 8 years did nobody in 8 years accuse any of the police of any kind of wrongdoing. I've seen sometimes where a police will arrest another police officer, but in 8 years, in a big major city, none of the police did anything, and nobody accused them of anything. There was no crimes whatsoever, no complaints, no accusations of these mostly male, some female humans of a crime. To err is human. So to assume that everybody in uniform, this is what America used to be. Amy Klobuchar is a relic of the past, but this is what America used to be, very fascist. Doesn't matter. If, basically, most of the time the cops are right. They're the ones in positions of power. You've entrusted them to continue to enforce the law. These weak little, judges, these tiny little fragile little trolls, they can't, defend themselves, so they basically, like the big cops, they endorse the big cops and get their own protection from them and let the cops do what they want. So it's an unholy alliance. The grand jury also buries all the murder charges, so cops can literally get away with murder. In Minneapolis, they did. So not only did they not commit any major crimes, well, they did. They killed 40 people, so... Yeah, I guess murder. I guess I'm saying not only did they, none of them got prosecuted. So that means there was no shoplifting, there was no domestic violence, right? There was no sexual assault, there was no child abuse, there was absolutely no crimes, no white-collar crime, nothing, right? Just across the board, cops, if they had a badge and a uniform, they would walk around Minneapolis during the 8 years that Amy Klobuchar was prosecuting them. They could do no wrong. They were holier than Jesus, Christ himself. They were holier than thou, holier than God. Of course, what a police officer could do wrong? No. They're in positions of power, and people in positions of power never are corrupt. It never happens. It never, ever happens. It didn't, apparently, in Minneapolis. We know it did. So it just shows you she's a relic of the past. And what the fuck, Amy? Huh? None of the police ever did anything wrong. None of the police. How do you know it wasn't one of them motherfuckers that shot that 11-year-old girl? So back to Bernie being the only one who's up against the superdelegates, right? There's round one and round two. The round one says if the first person doesn't get the majority, then it goes to round two, and then that means all the delegates are up to vote for whoever the fuck they want to vote for. It goes to a brokered convention, which a brokered convention would be the best thing for the Democratic Party because it would be exciting all the way up until the very end. But if you get to the end and you get to a Bloomberg, you get to the end and it's not fucking Bernie, that would be hard to. That's why I'm only going up to Super Tuesday. My interest is going to wane, and I'm going to go back to my life after Super Tuesday because I think Super Tuesday will really define what the fuck is going on in America. And since these five, they asked the question, are we going to go with the majority? Because it says simple majority. So that means that Bernie Sanders wins 49%. If Michael Bloomberg wins 49%, it's not 50%, it's not above 50%, it's not a majority. Even if they're number one, even if they have more votes than all the other candidates, so technically they got more votes than everybody else, that's why you need ranked choice voting. Jesus Christ. Talk about ranked choice voting, with Iowa and now the goddamn brokered convention. We need ranked choice voting more than ever. Maine, I think, is going to vote, and they got ranked choice voting. I hope they vote for this presidential election with ranked choice voting. That's super fucking exciting. I'm glad I thought of this. I think Maine is a Bernie state, but they got ranked choice voting. So that would be so much more exciting, such a better conversation instead of at the end, well, the first place is first, and the second is second, and the third is third. Unless you're the mainstream media, then the third is first, and the second is last, and the first is not even in the running or something. I don't know. I forget how their formula works. But Bernie Sanders is the only one that's standing up against the superdelegates. He's the only one for actual democracy, small d democracy. Bernie Sanders is the only one who actually has any kind of moral compass when it comes to what's a fair electoral election. So ranked choice voting now. We needed ranked choice voting yesterday. So fuck. Ranked choice voting would settle all this. It would make the conversation so much better. And it's, the best goddamn fucking democracy. If you want a shitty democracy, then don't get ranked choice voting. If you want a good democracy, then you have to get ranked choice voting. It's the only fucking way to do it. What are you going to do, a parliamentary? You're going to do fucking Europe shit? Is that what you're going to do, Europe? So, because they all mentioned that, nope, we're all going to the second round in the July convention, it seemed like if all five of them, they seem poised to stay in the campaign until the July convention on their own. A lot of these, Kamala dropped out. Why the fuck did she drop out? But if all five stay in the race, they could stop Bernie that way, and it might be the only way to stop Bernie that way. So really, Bernie Sanders supporters, we need to peel. All five, they all need to drop the fuck out, right? Warren is the biggest, I think, progressive threat. Tulsi Gabbard and Tom Steyer can stay in because they're allies. I see them not getting the majority, but getting enough delegates and then giving their delegates to Bernie Sanders. And they'll become the kingmaker. They'll become, absolutely vital and important. Tulsi has been in it, the whole time. And actually, if you look at Rocky De La Fuente and Rita Krzyzewski, was Rita Krzyzewski in there? I'm not sure, but I thought that, Rocky De La Fuente, his name's on the ballot. That's all you got to do to really get in the goddamn fucking election. Just get your name on the fucking ballot. And then sit back and see if people vote for you. If the majority vote for you, you win. If they don't, then you don't. So that's a campaign. I mean, it's kind of crazy that people feel like they need, $40 million and they got to say something day in and day out every day, put on an event, give some kind of speech. You could just, take a vacation for a week, chill the fuck out, put your name on the ballot, and then chill out. You had, Fred Tuttle? Fred Tuttle said, come up to my house and I'll give you, I'll interview you right here. Well, I'm not going to go campaign. And in a way, that's what Taft and a lot of these old school people used to do. It used to be frowned on if you went out and knocked on doors and gave speeches. You're begging for people to vote for you. Aren't you better than that? What kind of aristocrat, goes hat in hand and says, please, American people, vote for me? So it used to be frowned upon to go campaign and ask for people's votes. But, it's, the state of affairs in America today. So it's ironic that Pete Buttigieg is right about the Electoral College, one person, one vote. He's wrong about the July convention. He doesn't call for the majority victor in Iowa. Now he'll take the delegate win. Now he'll take the Electoral College win. Oh, what? One person, one vote? Did I say? I didn't mean that. I was thinking something else. So yeah, one person, one vote. In some respects, there should be a majority victor. A plurality just isn't enough. But because they made that, rule number 2, or that round 2, without a simple majority, then superdelegates can vote. Everybody can vote. Everybody's free to vote whoever the fuck they want to vote for. So that means Sanders delegates could change their votes. That means Bloomberg delegates could change their votes, and they could vote, for fucking Al Gore if they wanted to. Just pick, somebody from outside the blue, and if that's who the convention votes for, it's all about the convention. Reading Hunter S. Thompson's 72 election, it gets real boring because he just talks about all the fucking convention, politicking behind the scenes. George McGovern was tired as fuck at the very end, gave his best speech, of his life, but it was too late for the American people to hear. And then something about his VP, he, was going to stand by him for 1,000 years, and then it turned out he, turned on him the next day. But just stupid, blunders. He was way fucking better than Nixon. George McGovern. I can't believe America voted for fucking Nixon over George McGovern. God, George McGovern would have been fantastic. What a great country this would have been. But we never got any liberals since Nixon was the last liberal. Isn't that insane? The mobile app for MSNBC and NBC News sucks. I saw a healthcare insurance commercial on the MSNBC website. MSNBC. Wow, okay, so they're going to get us Medicare for all, and then there's a healthcare commercial. Hey, don't forget about us. We love you too, and we're family. This is home, and we're family, and we're connected. We're soulmates. Don't you leave us. Pete asked Bernie Sanders, where's the other $25 trillion going to come from? Because apparently he says that Bernie's programs cost $50 trillion, but his revenue programs only add up to $25 trillion. So where's the other $25 trillion going to come from? I think that's a good question. It says two things. First of all, Bernie Sanders has a plan to, raise $25 trillion in revenue. You could do a lot with $25 trillion. And then the fact that, Bernie or Pete is asking him this question, maybe Bernie hadn't thought about it, so maybe he's got to think of a couple more, revenue streams, more revenue-generating plans. Personally, I like plans that don't just raise taxes, like a business. The post office, they sell stamps, so things that businesses can do to help raise their own revenue and be self-sustaining. I like that better. If a business would run one business, a grocery store, a gas station, and a grocery store, I'd be okay with them doing that. Then they would profit, and that profit goes back into the public coffers, and then it's also sort of a regulating mechanism for the other people to prevent them from price gouging. I think it's a good idea by having a business because it's a corporation who offers a service, and then that actually, that's a self-sustaining entity. A business is a self-sustaining entity. And governments, should try to be as efficient as a business. The purpose of government is, completely different than a business. They're trying to make as much money as possible as a business. As a government, if you did work on making as much money as possible, it would actually help with taxes, reduce taxes, and you would have more to spend. You would have a lot more money to spend. So, like buying Walmart, I think governments should buy Walmarts. Governments should buy a bunch of things. You think there's something out there? I guess last thing I'm going to mention is that Elizabeth Warren was prepared last night. She was quoted as saying that being up against Bloomberg is basically being up against Donald. You get to see how Elizabeth Warren will do against Donald Trump. Bloomberg is the Democratic version of Donald Trump, so you get to see how Liz fucking tore into Bloomberg, and that is going to help her candidacy and her campaign in both Nevada and in South Carolina. They're both going to like that, what she did with Bloomberg, because they're going to say if she could do that to Bloomberg, then she could do that to Donald. So they, she recognized the opportunity that going up against a plutocrat, a billionaire, arrogant billionaire, plutocratic oligarch, piece of shit, lowlife, and use it as an opportunity to kick ass and take some names. And, so Elizabeth Warren is back. I'm excited, actually, about that. I do see her as the biggest progressive threat. She's a capitalist to her bones, so she has no degree of socialism in herself whatsoever. None. No degree, no heart, no give a shit about the community. It's all just dog-eat-dog individualism, just rugged dog-eat, some sink, some swim, c'est la vie, who gives a fuck? You fell off? Yeah, you sunk? You're stuck in a ditch, you starved to death? C'est la vie, or I guess not for you, c'est la vie for us. It is not, that is death. C'est la death. So she was prepared. If you actually read what Elizabeth was saying before the debate, she was sitting there saying that, you get to see it's going to be good practice. So she was ready, and, Anyways, Jonathan Masters, 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Greater Crazy Beaver area, Southern Colorado, USA. Peace. Vote for Bernie.